time.
Okay, so it started.
There we go. All right. Um, shall I simply start as though we had 50 people out there?
Yes, because we will.
And they can, most of them can watch the video or jump in a little bit late. So let me begin as though I have a bigger audience. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope by now you all have received my last emailing to you and have printed it out. Possibly some of you do not have printers, which is not a big deal. You can save anything on a flash drive and take it to Kinko's and they'll print it out. But ideally, since there will be a number of these sessions, you should print out each one and then put them all into a folder. And also perhaps start writing down the new words in a separate place. Put them in another file on your computer, and then you can alphabetize them and do what's necessary. Some of you are new to this, so I want to go over a couple of things before we get into Seminole specifically. I want to say something about Creole languages and why they are distinct. Creole languages are the result of an earlier stage of language development, which we call Pidgin, P-I-D-G-I-N. Pidgin languages come into existence when a whole bunch of people speaking a whole bunch of different languages somehow find themselves all together in one place for an extended period of time, and they desperately need to communicate, but they don't have a single language that all of them know. What happens is that because we are human beings, we have this unique genetic capability of creating language. We're the only living creatures that can do that. That is to say, we have a program in our brains that creates language, a structured thing. What it doesn't have is a vocabulary. All of the languages of the world, and there's more than 6,000 of them, each language has its own set of words. So you go from one language to another, the words change. But the structures more or less overlap. And in the case of Creole structure, grammar, the overriding thing about Creole grammar is that with access to words, which are absolutely necessary from the get-go, you have to know where the words come from. You have to remember some of them at least, but then you have to know how to put them together. Most of the languages in the world do this by having a stock of, let's call them root words or base words, but then another smaller stock of bits you can stick on the end or the beginning to change the grammar. So let's take English as a good example. And let's take the verb to prove, okay? You've got the word prove, that never changes. But there are a lot of different endings that can go onto the word prove. You can say prove without an ending. You can put an S on it, he proves. You can do it the biblical way and say he proveth. Then you put a TH on the end. You can make it past tense and proven. You can make it proving. And then there's even the word proof, where you change the N to an F. Now, learning the base words is not that difficult. And I asked you on the mail out to learn a bunch of Seminole words. Learning the endings is a different situation because they keep changing. And in order to know what is going to be the right ending, you have to know the grammar of the language. You have to learn that an S on the end of something makes a plural, but it doesn't always. You don't put an S on child, you say children, right? You don't put an S on foot, you say feet. So when people were herded together, they generally had access to one overriding language, and it was usually the language of the people that caused the situation. So let's look a bit more directly at the Africa situation and the colonial situation and the slave trade, the painful history. In order to make money, really, that's what it was all about, the Europeans would negotiate with Africans to buy people. And they would do this in a number of different ways, but they would collect people brutally, mostly, herd them onto ships, and ship them across the Atlantic from Africa and then sell them to different places. One of the policies was to keep different African groups apart from each other that could speak the same language, because they were afraid that a group of people that could speak the same language could plot a resistance of some sort. So they made an effort to separate people off from each other if they spoke the same language. It wasn't 100% successful, as we know, but it was largely successful, which meant that the Africans, finding themselves all herded together in confined spaces for a long time, were desperate to talk to each other, figure out what's going on, what's going to happen to us. The only language they heard every day came from the people in charge. So they were picking up words, but the endings, like I explained, the endings kept changing. And unless you know the grammar, you don't know what to do with those endings. The easiest thing is to get rid of them, but keep the root word. That doesn't change. Now, if you have a stock of words, a vocabulary, you then have to know, you have to have a way of how to string them together in a fixed way that everybody's going to do it the same way, because you don't want haphazard, just jumbles of words. The distinctiveness of Creole languages is that they are extremely streamlined. Think about the social circumstances. You don't want stuff in there that's wasting time, wasting space, a lot of grammar that you don't need. Let's get rid of that. Let's do what a lot of other languages do. And instead of having different endings for different things, let's not have any endings. Let's just use separate words that never change. And this is what is remarkable about Creole grammar. So if you look at Louisiana Creole, spoken in Louisiana, or Haitian Creole, another French vocabulary, French lexicon Creole, or Jamaican, another one with English vocabulary, the grammars match. The basic example of Creole grammar versus English grammar is, okay, in English, if you want to make a plural, you add an ending, which is usually an apostrophe S. John, Johns. uh, boy, boys, and so on. Because Creole grammar doesn't have endings, actually Seminole has a couple of them, but not many. The general Creole way to make a plural is not to stick an ending on, but to have a separate word, which in the case of Creole and other English lexical Creoles is dem. So instead of saying boys, you would say boy dem. In the case of the apostrophe S for possession, like John's house, you can leave that out altogether and just say John House. You're not going to be confused about that, John House. You know exactly what that means. You don't need the ending. So with that in mind, let's proceed with Afro-Seminole Creole specifically, realizing that it does have many words, not all of them, but many of its words do come from English. They don't have to sound like modern day English because we're looking back into the 1800s and 1700s when this was happening. But they are mostly English. We have other words in Seminole, Afro-Seminole, from African languages, which is predictable. We have Native American, and of course, in the Brackettville Nacimiento side of things, we're going to have Spanish words too. But we are not looking at a kind of English. We're looking at a language that has a lot of English words in it. If people accuse you of speaking a kind of messed up English, then you could easily say, well, English has to be a kind of messed up French. There are more French words in modern English than actual original English words. You do a word count in the dictionary and you'll see that less than a third of all of the words we use are really English words, most of them French, Latin, other stuff. So keep that in mind. Do try to approach learning Afro-Seminole as a new language. Don't think because a word looks like English, it's necessarily going to mean the same thing as what it does in English. Okay, let's look at the paper. I hope you have printed it out and have it in front of you. And what I suggested that you do on your own time, usually just by yourself because you'll sound a bit weird, just substitute a couple of English words for a couple of Seminole words. In other words, instead of saying to in front of a verb, I want to do something, just say f. I want f do something. Every time you get a to plus a verb in your own English, I'm not saying you're speaking Seminole, but in your own messed up English, say, I want f do it. I want f go there. I want f sit down. The other thing I want you to do is instead of saying don't, just say na. I na want f go instead of I don't want to go. If you can get into a comfortable habit of recognizing na as meaning don't, you are a long way towards speaking Seminole because that's how you do it in Seminole. I've got something here on spelling. You're mostly not going to be writing this. If you do, you really have only two choices. One is the one that linguists use, which we are not going to use. That involves phonetic alphabet and everything. So you're going to have to use the spelling you already know, which is English spelling. Problem with that is that it doesn't convey the true pronunciation. Only phonetic spelling can show you the real pronunciation of a word. So you're going to have to write something in fixed up English spelling and know that it may not be exactly the way you say it. And I made the point that although we are spelling Hunna as Hunnuh, which sort of looks like Hanna, you don't say Hanna. It actually sounds like Hunna. Little things like that. So keep that in mind. I gave you a list of words to remember, and do remember them. I'm going to go through them and pronounce them the best way I know. I'm not a native speaker, keep that in mind. But if you have the list in front of you, a, a means I. A, no I'm for go. I don't want to go. Bin, we haven't done bin yet, but it's bin. I'll come back to that one. Breda, breda is brother. So don't say brother, say breda. Kia, for carry. Now, this is the first instance of where we have a modern English word, where carry doesn't mean the same thing as it does in Seminole. It does in some Southern American dialects still, but for the most part, in modern English, carry means to pick something up and transport it one way or another. In Seminole and in the other Creoles, carry doesn't mean to do that. It means to accompany. So you can carry somebody to the dance. It doesn't mean you've picked them up. Physically, it means you've accompanied them. But you would pronounce it as kya. Akyaram. I took her. If you wanted to actually physically carry something, then you'd use tote, which you all know tote. I toted it. Even modern English talks about a tote bag. But that's the Seminole word for carry. And then kya means to accompany. So see that difference. The next one, chue. Chue obviously comes from throw away, but it doesn't just mean throw away. It can also mean to spill something. Hana chue water. You spilt your water. Hana chue, hana water. Hana chue you water. You can say both of those things. It means you just knocked over your glass of water. But it can also mean waste. No some. You don't waste it. Nachueam, same thing. Dadi. Dadi is one of my favorite words because it illustrates the lilt of the language. And that's the hard part of all of these lessons, because we're going to rely on the people who still speak it to show us how actually to say the words in the proper Seminole way. And although the word for father or daddy is dadi, you have to put an emphasis on it, like dadi, which makes it sound a lot more like people from the West Indies. Dem. Dem is one of the fundamental basic words in the language, and I did ask you to do a little homework thing with the text on how to make the akara, to go through and underline all of the dems you could find, and then decide what their actual grammatical function was, because dem has a number of different functions. It can mean they or them or their. I'll give you examples of each of those. If you wanted to say they are going, you would say them to go. If you wanted to say their house, you would say them house. And if you wanted to say I see them, then you say I see them. But it can also be the word, that I gave you a little while ago that makes plurals. You stick it after the noun. So if you wanted to say the boys, it would be the boy dem. So dem uh, has a lot of different meanings, and it can also mean those. You could say dem boy. And that brings up another thing. You don't have an S to make a plural because you've lost all of that. So you don't have to say dem boys, you just say dem boy. You know it's plural because you said dem in the first place. Uh, Dog is dog, e. Now pronounce it e or I, and it means he or she or it. So unlike English, there's no gender distinction between male and female, which is simply copying how African languages do it the same way. And some European languages do it that way too. Hungarian doesn't, it has the same word for he and she. Um, but this is common in Creole grammar. So I could mean he or she or it. Ere. Ere means any. Um, you hear it still in some southern US dialects. You hear more often nary. I didn't see nary a person, which would be the negative of ere. So ere means some or any, and it's the word in our new slogan, which should be at the top of your first page. Ere people, we know how their own language, number the half of people. And that means any people that don't have their own language are only half a people. So ere, useful word. Fa is the other word I was asking you to slip into your English now. Its basic meaning is to. Um, I want for dance, I want to dance. It also means must. So if I said you or Hannah for go there, that means you must go there. So there's these two separate meanings for fa. And that's how you say it, fa. Haste up just means lift up. It comes from the old hoist. It's a nautical word because remember, English was brought across the ocean on ships. So there's quite a bit of nautical words in there. But haste up means just to lift up. If you wanted somebody to get out of a chair and move, you could say, haste up your bunta, bunta. And move out of the way. Half is half. A lot of the pronunciations of Seminole will remind you more of British pronunciations than American ones because we're going back to colonial times. So you're going to hear half, you're going to hear masa instead of master, and so on. There's quite a lot of that. Hana, we talked about it. It means you singular or you all. And of course, it also means your. So y'all's house would be Hana house. People, well, that's people but pronounced in a Seminole way. Pingi. Now, this is our first, if we skip over Hana, which is African, this is our first African word that means cooking pot, pingi. I don't know how many people from Bracket know it. The people in Nacimiento, old people down there, tend to remember things a bit better than they do in Texas, but that's because they're not bombarded by English so much. And they've kept a lot more African and other words than people have in Texas. But a pingi is a cooking pot. Sit down means to put something down. Sit down da pingi, put down that pot. Tote, I talked about, it just means carry. Walk is walk, same. Way. Now, way I think I'm going to have to leave for a later lesson. It is kind of complicated. It's absolutely necessary that you understand how to use it in Seminole. But for now, you can interpret it way as that when you are saying sentences like the book that I read, the book we I read. But it means a lot more than that. And it can also mean where. You could say, where de, where is he? Yeti, yeti means to hear. Um, that's just a pronunciation of a very, very old word, not a straight British English word, but a word from a dialect, from a part of English spoken in the southwest of England that a lot of the sailors came from. So we can imagine that the sailors on the ships were talking like this, and they would say Yeti, and it just got transferred over. Okay, I hope you're all keeping up with me, because I think future lessons will follow this sort of pattern. I'll go through what you get sent a week or two before. You'll have time to digest the content, and then I can go through it and make comments specifically. And I hope that you won't simply wait until we're all together on the Zoom screen, because there aren't many of us on there right now. But I expect to have questions from you, and you can certainly send them to me. You can email them to me, and I'll make a note, and then I can deal with those in our next session. Okay, so on the homework page, I'm asking you to look at the recipe, and I'm saying you don't have to understand the whole thing. Try and work out as much as you can. Try and read it out aloud. But I ask you to go through and pick out all the dems, underline them. I think I left enough space underneath each line for you to scribble something in there. But look at each dem and decide which grammatical dem it was. And I will tell you as we go through. Akara, the one dem ting. Okay. Akara is one of those things. So in that case, it means those. Akara is one of those things. Fa eat. Well, you already know fa means to eat. Akara, the one dem ting for eat. Akara is one of those things to eat. We first fada them. And there's that way I was just talking about. So you can translate it as that. First father means ancestors. Obviously, it means first fathers, ancestral fathers. So now going back to that sentence, we've got Akara is, I'll get to that duh in a later lesson, is one of those things to eat that our ancestors cared with them the time they come from America. Been care. Been makes a past tense. That's a future lesson. Care, remember I talked about, means to accompany, to bring. With them, so now it's just a straight pronoun them. They brought with them. The time them come, and there's another they. The time that they came, de America. Now the de means to, but more about that later. You'll be noticing that the verbs there are not changed the way we would do it in English. For example, been care with them. In English, you would have to say took, not take, but took. And the time them come to America, in English, you'd have to say the time that they came to America, but none of that applies in Seminole. The grammar is quite different. If you don't put anything around the verb, assume it means the past tense. So in this sense, come means came. Ida Hana go to South America. Either Jamaica, either Haiti, anywhere black people de Hana and find their car. For sure, the Seminole too been a Mecca, but he tanka they must have don't forget about him. Okay, I skipped to them there. Uh, for sure, the Seminole too been a Mecca. In other words, certainly for sure, the Seminoles also too been Mecca. That needs some explaining a bit later on, but it simply means made it, Akara. But Itanka them must have done forget. Tanka means it seems as though. It's really a mistake with Creole languages to figure out what the English original was, because then you're going to keep thinking that you're speaking a sort of English. It's interesting to see where the words come from. Tanka comes from tan laka. Tan comes from stand, and laka comes from like. So if we go back far enough, tanka comes from stand like. And if you think about English and how we can use stand, meaning to be, let's see how things stand. Tanka means what they were like, how they stand like. But so where are we? Itanka dem musadam forget. It seems as though they, so now it's subject they, not them, but it's still pronoun they, musadam forget, must have done forgot in English. Not in book English, but a lot of people in the South would say you must have done forgot. Bottom sometime in the past. Dem kolam binchakara. Again, dem means they. They called it binchakara. Kizimek from Black Eyed Peas. What dem to call beach. What they call beans. Moving on down. Okay. The ingredients, 1 lily bag black eyed key, the fresh one if you can find them. Now they try one dem. Now there's your plural dem. This whole sentence says a small bag, 1 lily bag, black eyed pea. You don't have to say of. The fresh one, if you can find them, not the dry one dem. So if you're able to find fresh black eyed peas, that's preferable, not the dry ones. The plural z is the dem. Of course, you can use dry ones, but you've got to soak them. You've got to get all the skins up. Salt and pepper, 1 onion, 1 jalapeno, if I like 1 bittle, 1 mouth. Soak the pea dem, soak the peas, plural, good overnight till all them, all of them, can come loose. That is talking about the skins on the peas. Then, now that then just means then, what you've got to do then. Day clean. Now, day clean means next morning. It literally means dawn, when the day becomes clean from the sunshine, presumably. Hana must wrench them around. So you got to squish them around in the water, and that loosens off the skins, which tend to float up, and you can gather them off and get rid of them. The thing about making this is you don't need any of the skins, which have the little black part on them. So soak them overnight till the skins come off, rinse them around. Wrench them, the bottom line, wrench them again, rinse them again, and stream them clean and pretty. Um, so this means, and I wonder how many of you coming up heard people say wrench instead of rinse. It's a perfectly legitimate dialect variation of rinse. You find it in parts of Britain, you find it in parts of this country, but you certainly find it in Seminole too. So what you're doing now with the beans is uh, rustling them around in the water. As soon as the skins come up and float up, you get rid of them, you do it again until you're pretty sure there's no skins from the beans, the black-eyed peas floating around, and all you got is beautiful ivory-colored black-eyed peas. And what you do then is you grind them. Now, I don't use a metate. I may have one somewhere, but I don't use it. I use a blender, and I throw them in a blender with a little bit of water and maybe half a raw onion and salt and pepper, and then grind the mess out of them. And you end up with a smooth, thick paste, but not too thick. You don't want it too thick, because when you throw that paste into the oil, the water that's in there has to boil and create steam to puff up the acaras. But you should be able to form a nice roundish portion of it on your spoon. The rounder, the better. The way the Africans do it, it comes up beautifully round. The way I do it, it looks like lightning struck it. But if you can get a nice round, maybe an inch and a half round of the batter into hot oil, leave it in there, it will fizz and fry. It will get brown underneath. You've got to flip it over and get it brown on top, and then it's be a nice golden, darkish golden brown. You can fish it out and do another one. Why I included this, why I'm making such a deal of it, is because it was one of the foods that the Creole population inherited. It's part of the foods of the African diaspora. Wherever you find the descendants of Africans in the Americas, North, South, Central, the West Indies, Caribbean, you're going to find akara. And absolutely, the Seminoles had it too at one time. And it was one of those recipes that got lost. At the end of what you should have printed out, I listed a number of other Seminole dishes and ingredients that I hope very much that some of you remember and know how to cook, how to prepare. I'll read the list again in case you don't have it in front of you. But there was flu bread, there was fry bread, there was pasoli, kind of a drink, pinaria, paleo, polioti, stamal bread, sufki, terapu, toli, a lot of these things. And some of them clearly are Native American. You can tell from the names. But some of them are African. All of them are Seminole. And it will be a wonderful thing when we eventually put out these lessons and the grammar, the proper grammar, and the dictionary. There will also be recipes and historical stories, reminiscences. We're going to have photographs of ancestors and heroes and so on. But none of that can happen unless everybody has something to contribute. So it is now 5:45. We still have a little bit of time. And I was hoping that there would be enough people that some questions would be coming in. If you don't have the questions now, you surely will have questions later. There's Gabriel. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so one of the questions I had was about the dem as a plural marker.
Yeah.
So if I'm like correct, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. It's like to say there's two ways to say like the turtles. You could say ekuta dem, ikuta dem.
No. The E is just a pronoun. It's not.
Right. Okay. So that's not.
The.
Okay.
The word for thee is D. D-I-D.
Is di? So you would say di kuta dem.
The kuta, not kuta, but kuta.
Kuta. Okay. So di kuta.
The kuta dem.
Di kuta dem.
Yeah.
Or you could say dem kuta.
That would mean those turtles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Asiden kuta. Or
Asi dem. Okay.
Asiden kuta oyanda.
Asi dem kuta.
Yeah.
Is I saw those turtles.
I see those turtles.
Versus asin.
No, not seen.
No.
See. Now that's in I saw.
Oh, right. So I been see
dem kuta.
Kuta dem is
yeah.
I saw turtles.
The turtles.
The turtles. Okay.
If you just said I been see kuta dem, that would mean I saw turtles.
So I been see kuta dem
Yeah.
I been see kuta dem
yeah.
is I saw turtles.
Yes.
And then I been see the kuta dem is the turtles.
Not the
D, sorry. I've been see D kuta dem is I saw the turtles.
Perfect.
And then I've been see dem kuta is I saw those turtles.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Let me write that down.
But you're doing what everybody is bound to do, and you're letting English interfere
with the
like
it's easy to do because so many of the words match, but keep in your head right up front, you're not speaking English. You're speaking another language that has English words in it. Kuda is an African word. It's not an English word.
Now, I have a question about the word way.
Yeah.
I remember hearing elders saying, the way you think you to go, the what you think you to do. But way you said could replace where, wissa, right?
Okay, well, the sentence you just gave me is like the English word way, the way you're going. Okay.
The way, oh, okay. I thought it was, okay, so where you think you're going, where do you think you're going?
That is a little bit Englishy, actually. You can do it. It was common. You know that the verb that means to exist is de. So you could say way de, meaning where is he? But the deeper word is wisse. Wisse de. Where is he? But that's a different way. You can say, the man where I've been talked to. The man whom that I was talking to. And the other example I think I gave, the book where I read. the book
Mhm.
that I read.
I'm reading. Okay.
Yeah. So think of way in that to mean that when you're connecting bits of
Like the beginning and the subject of the sentence. Okay.
yes, which is different from se.
Mhm.
That's where it gets a bit complicated, and that will take up certainly another lesson. But in Creole grammar, there's a big grammatical distinction reflected by we and se in Seminole. Because Jamaican does the same thing as we and se.
Mhm.
Creole in Sierra Leone has we and se. And they all have we and se, which English really doesn't have. So that's something that's universally
Creole.
Creole, but not otherwise.
So another thought that I have is, and I love that you say that, and especially from the last lesson when you said we have to remove the stigma of
Mhm.
thinking that this is a broken English, because of course all I'm thinking in is English, you know, and trying to apply that. Do you have any tricks or suggestions on how to sort of, and I know it will come with time, the more we learn, but is there anything for the absolute beginner to just sort of let English not rule as dominantly as it does in trying to figure things out?
I believe so, but it does involve deconstructing ideas you grew up with.
Yeah.
Uh, the only reason that people may think that Seminole is bad English is because at some point, kids in class, I mean, let's go back to 1910,
Yeah.
times like that.
Yeah.
And the teachers who are not Seminole teachers are saying, I can't understand a word you're saying, speak English properly. And if that's the only thing you ever hear, and the people who are telling you that are the people with the power and the control, then from your perspective, they must be right
Yeah.
because they're in charge. Let's take Spanish as another good example. In Texas,
Mm-hmm.
people will say it's not proper Spanish. It's mixed with English.
Yeah.
Its grammar's messed up. I asked one of my students, I said, who in here can speak Spanish? Well, I can speak Tex-Mex. I said, well, what is Tex-Mex? Well, it's sort of messed up Spanish. I said, well, say something in Tex-Mex. I don't want to do it. I said, well, say the girl is in the house in Tex-Mex. So she says, La muchacha está en la casa. I said, but that's Spanish. No, it's Tex-Mex. I said, no, that's how you'd say it in Spain. That's how
Yeah.
you'd say it in Argentina. She was taught that they speak badly. People will say that English has more prestige than Spanish.
Mm.
And they will say, look at Spanish, look at Tex-Mex, where you would say, parquear la troca, right? Park the truck. You're
Mm-hmm.
using English words when you say parquear la troca. No, park and truck in English came from French.
Exactly, which is Latin. Yeah.
They're not even English words. English got them from French. So why is it okay to say park the truck in English, but you cannot use adopted words in Spanish, which is ridiculous. So it's really a sociolinguistic,
Mm-hmm.
that is to say, society and language working together. The Spanish spoken here is every bit as good as Spanish spoken in Spain. In fact, in some respects, it is more archaic. It has more grammatical forms than they still have in Spain.
Wow.
There are complicated past tenses in American Spanish that have disappeared in Spain. but it's because Spanish speakers historically have had a lower prestige
Mm-hmm.
in colonial society. So
Yeah.
you link your social level with your whole worth as a person and the worth of the language you speak.
Exactly.
And once you understand who's responsible for that, the colonial structure, the colonists who destroyed American cultures. I was watching something about what the Spaniards did to the native people.
Wow.
There's no way that you cannot think that that is superior to what you have.
Yeah.
And as long as you remember that and can explain that you're speaking a language which has come out of human ingenuity, actually.
Human ingenuity. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and there's nothing in Afro-Seminole that you cannot say in any other language. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
uh, I would ask my students, do you think the Anglo-Saxons could have written an algebra textbook? Do you think the Navajo could write an algebra textbook? No, of course,
Mm-hmm.
not. Well, that's wrong. When you need a word, you take the word.
You figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, if those people know how to do algebra, you use the word they use. We talk about sushi now, right?
Yeah.
An English word. But when English speakers started eating sushi, they needed a word for it. Where do they go? To the sushi people. Took the word. That's how language works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Let's, Wendy, find out how many people who were signed up have good excuses for not showing.
Yeah. What? Yeah. I'm wondering if it was that it was, even though in your last email you had said the 24th, maybe they didn't realize it till we got the Zoom link. So I'm thinking I need to send out that link a lot earlier,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so,
totally missed it in the email, the last email. I didn't get it until the Zoom link, so I just
oh, okay.
carefully
So
enough. So
that's a
yeah, I
good,
think that
yeah.
might have been what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well,
and it
Wendy,
was,
it's you. You are the host of this. I'm not the host. So,
yeah.
would you please get feedback from everybody on the list and ask, is this working to your
Yeah,
satisfaction?
definitely. Definitely. And, yeah. So, and then because our next scheduled meeting is August, I guess around August 18th, 19th, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So we'll do a lot of, I'll make sure to do a lot of, reminders and stuff before then.
Reminders, and I will prepare another 2 or 3 page send out,
Yeah.
which I will
Because that was
include
perfect. I love
like
that.
yeah. But it will be a copy of this. I'll pick a couple more aspects of grammar.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to beat people over the head with this because they will run.
No, I think this is a perfect introduction. It's not overwhelming, and I kind of like the idea within the recipe to find dem. That was not hard to do. And then, it wasn't an overwhelming lesson. It's very like sticking your toes in instead of jumping in,
Well,
full
that's
bodied.
to do it.
So, yeah.
Most people don't care about grammar and all of that. It has to come from the interest must come from inside.
Yeah.
Gabrielle, you had a question.
Yeah, I had two quick questions. I don't know if we still have time for them. I can save them for next
Yeah,
time.
you do.
Okay. So I just wanted to, so with Wissa, am I saying it right? Wissa?
Wissa? Yeah.
Wissa, it works the same as where in, so you can say like Wissa de dog in a question?
No.
No? Okay, it's only the place Wissa de dem, de pingy dem be.
No, you can't say that.
You cannot say that, okay.
If you wanted to say where are the children,
Uh-huh.
and you wouldn't say picnic.
No, I said pingy like the pot.
The pot. Where are
Yeah.
the pots? You say, what's the ping it and de? De means to be, to exist.
Yeah.
Do you speak Spanish, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, but you know the difference in Spanish between ser and estar.
Yes. Yeah.
So the de is está.
Okay.
So we say the pingi them de están. Where do they exist?
Dem de. Oh, okay.
All right.
Use wissa in that way. Like if you're not asking a question, you're saying.
We
So
say de. Where is he? We say I de.
wissa ide.
Yeah, where is he?
Oh, okay. Wissa ide, and then you can say de place wissa di pingi dembi.
You could
Place where the pot
it-
is.
in a sentence like that one, we probably sounds better.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
De,
okay.
dem,
Like
de.
Wendy was saying in the sentences she grew up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Could say we said, but usually keep saying
Is it more of a definite
Interrog-
like interrogatory word?
yes.
Okay.
We
Okay.
call them WH words in
Okay.
linguistics. How, why, where, when.
Yes.
WH words. So yeah, if it's at the beginning, where is he? And
Wissa.
since we're talking about that, but I'm going to have to spend more time on it later. The verb to, we could just translate it as is at the moment, which is duh.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to say, where is he? Right? You can say, wisse ide,
Wissa de.
wisse ide. But if you wanted to make it more emphatic, like, where is he? You would say, duh, wisse ide.
Okay, I was gonna ask you that too. So you just answered my question. Okay, yeah, because when I was referring to like dewe, so that was an emphatic,
The way,
like the way you to go. Like
yeah, the way to go.
okay,
That's
okay.
is
I was
where,
wondering what that was. Okay,
Okay.
and that just makes it more emphatic.
yeah, okay.
The
And
way you want to do. It is what that you want to do. The way you want to do. The what I you. What's
Uh-huh.
wrong with you? The what I you.
Very cool. Okay, so that D, is it just DE at the beginning or DU? Okay,
Oh,
and it's
DUH.
just
DUH.
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 Okay, and that's for to make it more emphatic. That makes, yeah, perfect sense. But it feels like they would say that all the time from the people that I remember growing up. It was always emphatic.
Yeah, the way you do.
and
Yeah.
and D, it's D, right? Like D, not when you're saying the, it's D, not duh, right? The
Spell it
duh is the
D-I.
emphatic
D-I or D-E, but pronounce it D.
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 Okay.
Okay.
D-man.
Like you would a Spanish I kind of D.
Yeah.
So there's never like a lazy, you know how in English, and here I go referring to English, like the and the, there's never like a lazy D,
Well,
you know?
yeah, in English, it's interesting because the word for the, you say the if the next word starts with a vowel. So you'd say the apple.
Mm-hmm.
But if it starts with a consonant, then you say the house, right?
Yeah.
Not the
Or
house,
sometimes we always just
the
say the. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a South Texas. I feel like everyone just says the.
apple. Yeah, or apple. The apple.
The other.
Now that's interesting because
Yeah, I think we always say the for everything.
yeah, but it's the in Seminole, and if you want to say a, you can say one. Give me one apple,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't necessarily mean just one apple. It means a. It means an apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I see one man. I saw a man.
Amen. Yeah.
I see one man. Okay.
If you think about Spanish again, un,
And
you need
yeah.
one
Okay.
in right?
All right.
Mhm.
So that's the Spanish influence on Seminole then?
No,
No, not
all the
necessarily.
Creoles do the same,
Oh, okay.
even when
Okay.
there's no Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had one other question, and I was just wondering, shum and yedi. I'm not sure if I'm
Mhm.
right. I just because there's such like verbs that are used so often. I was just wondering like where if you knew the origin for those words, because I know they exist in Gullah too, right?
Well, Gullah has shum,
Okay.
which means see it,
Mhm.
saw it. Seminole doesn't say shum, it says shem.
Oh,
Shem.
right. Okay.
Ashem would mean I saw, he, her, it, him, her, it.
Right.
You could say
I was I was getting them confused. Sorry.
Ashem Palikana. I saw it on the corner. It's just from C. Means he, him, her, it. A Yeti is just straight Southwest British dialect
Mm.
here. They talk like that in the southwest part of the UK, or used to. All right.
And did you also say Yeti was a nautical term?
No, the nautical one was probably
Pass it up.
Oh. tote or
Tote. Oh,
and then the other one that was nautical.
Pass it up.
Heist. Heist it up.
Oh, heisty. Heist
okay,
it.
like
Heist
heist.
them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I wrote nautical term next to Yeti then.
But you know, I would keep the interesting linguistically historical bits to one side.
Yeah.
And don't let them get in the way of remembering how
to say it.
when.
Mm-hmm.
But this is great. This is a very great first session. And you're sending it to everybody, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
And everybody, shame for not showing up today, but I understand.
It was a bit of a late notice too, so.
But next time, now you know what to expect.
Yes, we're learning as we go. So yeah, we'll make sure everybody is.
And it's not terrifying, and you don't even have to wear your mask. All right, I gotta go.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
See y'all later.
We'll see you.
And thanks for the details about the BMPs.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Trying to get
I hope you find some that you like.
Yeah. Gabrielle, do you live in Brackett?
No, I don't.
Where
I
do
live in the Rio Grande Valley.
Oh, okay. Not so far.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon.
See you later.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.